Well, hi everybody, Father Alex here. Welcome to another episode of the Godcast. Just for your information, I'm the vicar of St Matthew's Church in Burnley, which is in Lancashire. I'm the host of the Godcast. I'm also the vicar of St Matthew's Church in Burnley, and also I'm the author of Our Daily Bread from Argos to the Altar, which is just here on the bookshelf. If you can see, if you're watching on YouTube. My guest today on the Godcast is Spencer Gore. Spencer is the owner of Chelmsford City Football Club. I have got a real passion for non-league football, so I'm looking forward to having a chat with Spencer. I hope you enjoy the conversation. If you do, then do check out the Godcast. There are lots of footballers and sports people on there, as well as politicians, theologians, and authors, etc. So do check it out. But for now, I hope you enjoy this interview with Spencer Gore. Well, I'm delighted to say that joining me on the Godcast this week is Spencer Gore. Now, Spencer is the majority owner of Chelmsford City Football Club, and it's a real pleasure to get you on the Godcast. Spencer, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Very well indeed. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure and my privilege to get you on. We did say off camera that you weren't particularly religious, but I do think football is a way of life, isn't it? Is a bit of a leap of faith, certainly in your case, and I suppose we all want our clubs to be led to the promised land. Have you been a footy fan all your life, Spencer?
I have, yeah. I grew up near Chelmsford, so Chelmsford is my local team. But my mum's side of the family is all from Liverpool, so I used to go up there every holidays as a young kid, and you could hear the crowd at Goodison or Anfield from where my mum lived and my granddad lived, and yeah, I've just always been hooked on it, and I was lucky that most of my mum's side of the family were Liverpool fans rather than Everton. Um, but the very first, professional game I went to was actually Everton Millwall, with my dad. We arrived up at Anfield and up at Anfield where my granddad lived, and we walked up to Goodison and we got there at half time and we said to a policeman, look, we've driven up specifically for the game, which we hadn't, but any chance we can get in? And he literally opened a gate and let us in and it gave us two seats. So that was my introduction to professional football. Yeah.
Now times have changed, eh?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. My first game was Burnley versus Celtic in the Anglo-Scottish Cup. I don't know
Right.
if you remember that tournament. It was in the 70s. Celtic came
Right.
down. There was a pitch invasion, and there was about 300 Glaswegians got arrested. And my dad said, "We're never
Never
coming
again.
again."
It's funny how you remember things like that, isn't it? I remember going, the first game I ever went to on my own was the Merseyside derby at Goodison. So my mum's cousin had two season tickets and couldn't go. So I took one of them and I was there. I was about 13 and I had my Liverpool top on under my jumper because I was in the Everton end. And I remember coming out and I knew my way back to my granddad's. I sort of turned right out the stand, cut through Stanley Park, and it was down the road. And as I was coming out, 20,000 people were going left. And I was like, well, I'll just have to go with the flow. I don't know where I'm going, but I'll go with the flow. And then this massive fight kicked off. And I remember the police horses coming in and the helicopter overhead. And I was just thinking, Christ, I don't think I'll come to a game on my own again in future.
Yeah,
But
I remember those days
yeah,
following Burnley. Now,
yeah,
just talking of Burnley, Spence, a couple of similarities that we both hold the same nickname as the Clarets, which is
yeah.
which didn't pass me by. But what I thought was interesting, I was just looking at Chelmsford. It's not a place that I know very well, but I was looking at the population, and it's very similar to a place like Burnley, around about 100,000 population. Why do you think Chelmsford has not been kind of uh, in the heights of the Football League before? What's been the stumbling blocks for a club like Chelmsford?
Um, so when I first got involved as more than a fan back in, I think it was 2007, I was setting up my first business. And I had a 3 month non-compete, so I just came down to the club and said, "Look, I'm a local. I love football. I'm setting up a business. I've got some spare time." And I started doing some research, and Chelmsford has now got about 180,000
Right.
people. It's a very fast-growing city. It's just become a city not a few years back. And I started looking at football clubs in the country, and I ranked them on population size because I was looking at what the potential was in terms of footfall. And Chelmsford on population should be a championship side, and as you said, we've never been in the football league, so it's a little bit of a mystery. There's a few. If you go back in history, there's a few times when it was you had to be elected into the football league. There was a few times we should have where we finished top and should have gone up, and we weren't a popular team because we used to spend quite a bit of money and sign football league players. So I think that we weren't elected because we were too much competition. And then over the last 20, 30 years, it's a combination of with the club went bust back in the late 90s, lost the ground. We ground shared for quite a while over at Malden and then at Billericay. Since we've been back in Chelmsford, since I think it's 2005, we've had a council owned ground, which has got a running track round it. So I think it's just been badly managed in some circumstances, unlucky in other circumstances. Um, so I think it's got huge potential. It's you look at a Burnley and think, well, Christ, if teams like that can get to the top division, there's no reason why Chelmsford can't. In terms of we've got enough fan base to support that, and it's a fairly affluent area. It's not a massively deprived area. So there's no reason I don't think why it can't be a top flight team, and that's what we're working towards.
Yeah. I've always dreamed of owning a football club, and unfortunately, the Church of England stipend doesn't extend to that happening anytime soon. But I always do. I always, I'm a bit of a I like looking at maps, and I often look at maps and think, oh, this would be ideal for a football club. So for what you're saying about Chelmsford, yeah, 180,000. Gosh, that should definitely be potential there. What kind of clubs are people supporting? Now, Spencer, one of the things about Burnley that I'm really proud of is that we all wear Burnley shirts.
Yeah.
There are no Man United shirts in Burnley. There are no Liverpool shirts or top. It's Burnley. What's the challenge you're up against there?
Well, Essex in general is a bit of a funny footballing town, a county, I should say. The big two clubs by a mile traditionally are Colchester and Southend. They've both been championship clubs. They're both down on their luck, for want of a better phrase, at the moment. Colchester League Two, Southend in the National League, but both have huge potential, like Chelmsford. Both of those are big cities. Um, so you don't tend to see a lot of their shirts around Chelmsford, the odd one or two. It's really the Premier League that is the competition for us in terms of, and maybe a little bit of Ipswich these days, but it's mainly the West Hams and the Tottenhams that are the big two, and then some of the other London clubs. But yeah, West Ham is half an hour, if that 20 minutes on a train from Chelmsford. So that's taken up since it moved. That's taken up a lot of our sort of fan base.
Mm.
But I think it's crying out for a big club. It really is. We actually launched a new kit this year, or two new kits this year, and it's lovely seeing them being worn around the town because they've sold because the previous owners hadn't launched a new kit for about 3 or 4 years, I don't think. And it's nice to see them all around town. And one of the things we're actually doing to try and get that community aspect is back in 2002, I think it was, I went to watch Liverpool versus Alaves in Dortmund in the UEFA Cup final. And I heard that Alaves had all of their season ticket holders' names embroidered onto the shirt for the final. And I've always thought that was a great thing to do. So this year we're launching a third team kit with all of our season ticket holders' names embroidered onto it. So it's things like that. So it'd be nice seeing those shirts worn around town, where the season ticket holders can actually see their own name and they know that they're on the back of the players, sort of thing.
Yeah. I think I wonder what you think about, I mean in Lancashire, Spencer, we've had the recent uh, stories with Morecambe, a club
Yeah.
well, hopefully it looks like a deal finally might be struck for that club. But and more recent times, we had Bury who folded. How much kind of pressure do you feel as the custodian of Chelmsford? I mean, it's your money, it's your decisions. Does that weigh quite heavy, or does your business expertise kind of make that more manageable?
A little bit of both. I'm hoping my business expertise, my other businesses have been in the Times 100 fastest growing businesses, the FT 1000 fastest growing businesses in Europe. So my thought process is that I take some of that and bring it to the football club and try and professionalize things, and that will, will have a great impact on the football club. The reality is, you never know what's going to happen around the corner, and yeah, there's a huge amount of pressure on me that yeah, I've talked it up a lot that what I want to do with the club because I'm very much if we set a goal and tell everyone about it, we're much more likely to achieve it. So I've really been trying to get the momentum going in the city for the last year and making these bold statements. But now you've got to deliver on them. And someone asked me in the very first fans, so I introduced a fans forum when I took over because the fans had said there wasn't enough engagement. So I said, well, I can talk to you for free. Why wouldn't I be doing that? So we launched a fans forum every month, and the first question I got asked was, we've had previous owners come in and promise everything, and not deliver. How are you going to make us trust you today? And I said, well, I can't make you trust me today. That's impossible. It's not how trust works. Trust is built up over time. I said, the way that will work is I'll tell you I'm going to do something. And if I do it, you'll trust me a little bit more. And if I don't do it, you'll trust me a little bit less. And hopefully, I'll do enough of those things over the season that I get right that you'll trust me more and more. And then that's how we do it. And so I've been trying to make these little statements, little promises, and we've delivered on nearly all of them. And I've said, yeah, we'll get some things wrong, but they'll be for the right reasons. We've tried something and it hasn't worked, and we'll correct it when we can. But I want to make sure I keep getting things right more often than not because there is a huge amount of expectation on the club now. As you say, it's for a city of this size not to have been in the football league, never mind the Premier League, is phenomenal. So, I'm sort of saying I'm going to be the one to do that for us, and I'm certainly going to give it my best shot. Whether I do it or not, who knows? But yeah, that not many things keep me awake at night, but that's one thing that has started keeping me awake at
Mm,
night is the pressure of delivering that.
yeah. And what's been the significant change that you brought to the club, Spencer? Is it this element of professionalism, just kind of standards? Just say a bit about that from a leadership role.
Yeah, I think professionalism definitely. We're trying to run it as a proper business. The amount of people that tell you football's not like any other business, and I mean, I'm only a year in, so I may be proved wrong. I think it is like most other businesses. The biggest difference is when you make a decision, you've got a few thousand people will tell you if they agree or not, rather than in my other businesses, I haven't got that to the same degree. But the amount of people that have said to me, "Oh, that's not how we do it in this league," and I'm like, but that's potentially why we are still in this league because we've always done it that way. We do it the same as everyone else. So we're trying to look at things. Same with my other business, European Medical Journal. We're trying to look at doing things differently because we haven't got the budget to compete with all of the big boys. So we've got to do things differently. So it's trying some different things. In terms of the professionalism, we've taken the club full time for the first time in its history. And last Saturday, our first league game, you could just tell in the last 20 minutes that we were a much fitter team than the team we were playing, who put in a great performance. Don't get me wrong, but they train Tuesdays and Thursday evenings. We train four days a week plus two matches. So the fitness levels were really different towards the end of the game. So it's just things like that. It's what can we do to give us the best chance of professionalism? And there's certain things you can do that cost you a lot of money. And there's certain things you can do that don't really cost you anything. Getting players really fit doesn't cost you anything. Um, okay, you've got to once you're paying their salaries to be full time, there's no real additional cost there. So it's why aren't we the fittest team in the league? We need to be the fittest team in the league.
Mm,
We need to have the best team spirit. That's free. It doesn't cost us anything. So it's looking at these things and say, well, what can we do to increase all of these things? And it's those marginal gains that get talked about. It's the one percenters.
mm. It's really interesting. In another world, I was a middle manager for Argos, and they always brought the big guns, the athletes in, talked about these margins. And
Yeah,
Adrian Morehouse, you might remember the swimmer,
yeah, yeah,
won his gold medal from lane seven, and he lost it previously by microseconds, and it was that difference that he had to made up, which actually gave him the gold medal. And another chap I remember was Sir Clive Woodward,
yeah,
who was in charge of the England World Cup running team, and he came to talk to us at Argos. He said it all begins with the socks. We were all like, where's he going with this? And it was about the standards. Some of
yeah,
the players were coming in their own kit, or they weren't quite looking the part. And that's where he said he started the journey to them winning the World Cup. It's like starts with these socks guys, you know.
Yeah.
It's small margins, isn't it?
100%. We did some work with I got Sir Clive in to do we do a summer ball every year, and we got Sir Clive in to be one of our speakers, and we ended up working with him. He coached us for a good few months afterwards, and he came up with the phrase critical non-essentials, which later became through Sir Dave Brailsford marginal gains. But it's
Mm.
taking something, breaking it down into 100 pieces, and improving each one of those pieces by 1%, and you get 100% improvement. So it seems a lot easier to try and improve lots of things by 1% than the whole
Mm.
thing by 100%. And he talks about Lombardy time. Turn up 10 minutes early for everything. It's just disrespectful. So if you're not 10 minutes early, you're effectively late if you're on time, and if you're late, you're really late, and you're in trouble. And we use a lot of his stuff.
Mm.
We talk about wanting to have sponges rather than rocks. So rocks are someone that thinks they know everything already, they don't want to learn. A sponge just soaks up that knowledge and wants to constantly be improving. And it's all those little bits. They're not going to win you a league or a cup on their own, but you add enough of them together, and it might just be enough, as you say, like Adrian Morehouse, over the
Yeah.
course of the season or a race to make the difference.
Yeah. And just talking to those small marginal gains, Spencer, like I said, I like non-league, and we have a small club in the town of Burnley called Padiham, and I went to a pre-season friendly, and I heard a couple of players talking about one of the guys had left Padiham and gone on to pastures new, and the conversation was basically along the lines he'd gone because he got an extra tenner a week, you
Yeah.
know. And this is further down the pyramid, of course, but how difficult is it for you to convince people to come and play in the National League South, who might be Football League? Is it purely about Dosh? Is it or how do you sell the project beyond that?
No, I think money obviously comes into it. Everyone's got to pay bills at the end of the day, so money is a factor. Um, but we've got a much bigger budget than we had last year. We've deliberately increased that because we were going full time. But we're definitely not in the. I wouldn't have thought we were even in the top 5 or 6 in the league. So you can't just rely on money. And we've signed a few players that have come from National League, dropped down a level, and we've signed one player that was at the top scorer for Colchester United in League Two last year. And that doesn't just come down to money because we've not got as big a budgets as them. It comes down to a whole host of things. Where are they in the league? Are they going to be pushing for promotion, or are they going to be in a relegation battle? Where do they think we're going to be? Hopefully in a promotion battle. What are the long term aspirations for us for the club, and where do we want to go? What are the facilities like here? Although it's a council owned facility, so we have limited control on what we do. And a lot of the fans moan about the fact that it's got a running track around it. It's actually one of the best facilities in our league if you take that away, in that we've got a great clubhouse, we've got a free G on site, we've got a really good gym on site. So the players don't have to leave the setup once they're in here to train and to do those sorts of things. So I think it's a combination. We have a head of recruitment, Adam Drew, that does a lot of our recruitment with Angelo, the manager. With a couple of the signings, I was asked to get involved to really. So Jack Barham that came down from Aldershot. He just scored the winner and got man of the match in the FA Trophy in his last game for them. And I was asked to get on the phone to sell him the dream, and I love doing that because I'm so passionate about what we're trying to achieve. With Lyle, that's come from Colchester, he was known by one of our directors, Caroline Barker, who works on Sky Sports. She'd done some work with him, so there was a connection there. And we've got a really good team around the place now. Whether it's the coaching staff or the directors, we're really relentless in trying to achieve what we want to achieve. And so he sort of laughed and made a comment to the media not long ago that it just felt like a sort of a combined prolonged attack by me and Caroline to get him down here. That he said, she'd send him a message. 10 minutes later, I was sending him a message, and I think we just wore him down in the end and got him to sign. But so money does come into it, of course it does. But we're definitely signing players that it's not just about the money that they've had higher offers elsewhere, and
Mhm.
there's players that we did make the highest offer to. So it's a combination of different things.
Are you still, and I guess they're using agents as well, even at National League level. So you're dealing with that
I,
conundrum. Has
I
that been interesting for you?
Yeah, I think every single player probably that we signed this year had an agent, and we signed a lot of players this year. We look like we're sort of. Someone said to me on Talksport, you the money bags. We're not really. It's just that we've had to sign 18 players because we went full time. We lost our whole squad that were all part time with other
Mm.
jobs. So with the exception of Archie Tamplin, who re-signed, and Harry Barbrook, who was on loan with us last year from Ipswich, it's a whole new squad this year. So every single one of those, I think, has had an agent. Certainly the ones I've been involved with, and yeah, it does change the dynamic. I'm a very much an open and transparent guy. I just say it how it is. So I talk to a player and say, look, this is what we can offer you, and they agree to it. And then the agent comes in and changes things around, and obviously doing their job to get the best deal for the player. That's what they're there for. Um, but it does drag things out, and you generally end up where you were anyway, just
Mm.
slightly tweaked, and you've wasted a couple of weeks, quite a few hours, and got to the same place anyway. But we've been fortunate that the agents I've dealt with, and probably because they were representing some of the bigger players, they're very professional, and they do a good job. So yeah, I've dealt with a couple that you just think you're just wasting people's time here. You're not adding anything to this at all.
No.
But the majority of them seem to be, their job is to look after the players' best interests, and that's what they
Yeah.
do.
And what about the dynamic of managing your own expectations of the club, Spencer, managing the expectations of the supporters, which I know, they all want you to be in the Football League tomorrow, and also managing, I suppose the concern for me is the expectation of the manager. You know, there you are, club gone full time. He's got a whole new squad that he's probably had an influence in building. How do you manage all that? You know, that you don't expect too much from Angelo too soon, but whilst wanting him to deliver what you want.
Yeah, I think probably I'm the worst one for managing my own expectations. That I have higher expectations than any of the fans or the management. I'm so ambitious and I'm so driven, but I get really frustrated that we haven't got it all yesterday. I sometimes need to remind myself to enjoy the journey and not just look at the destination. Um, because best will in the world, no matter how successful we can't get to the Premier League for at least 5 years. So it's going to the minimum is 5 years. So let's enjoy those 5 years. And if we get there, great. If we don't, it takes longer. So be it. But there's no point just wishing away 5 years. So I think from that point of view, no one else really has higher expectations on me than myself. Some of the fans, it's hard because you want to give them that hope. It's the someone we were talking about this the other day. It's the hope that kills you, isn't it? You start every season thinking there's a chance, and then you go and lose a couple of games, and that hope, you know, you're just like, oh God, not another season like this.
Mhm.
So it's getting that balance between trying to be overly positive about everything, which I am, but also just making them realise that we're not going to win every single game this year. So don't get too down when we lose. Don't get too high when we win. Let's just say we want to get promoted this year. Realistically, playoffs is probably going to be the way we do it because we haven't got the biggest budgets. So let's be realistic about that. We're doing everything we can within our means to get us promoted. Ange's expectations are to get promoted. He's incredibly driven as well, and he'll push me on everything he can to try and get more because he wants to give the team the best opportunity to get promoted. And where we can, we'll give it, and where we can't, we'll just have that open and honest conversation and say, look, we haven't got that in the budget for this year. We're hoping to have it next year, or we're hoping to have it later in the season, or it's going to be a few years. But we're working on being football league ready, so that off the pitch, we're trying to get as close to being a football league team as we can be, so that when it happens on the pitch, there's no big changes that need to be made. We're looking at new grounds, and I openly talk about that because, again, why wouldn't I?
Mm.
But just because we're talking about it doesn't mean it's going to happen. We've got options where there's some land available, and the council seem open to discussions, but it's still got to get through planning. We've still got to buy the land, so it certainly doesn't mean it's happening. But I just think the more you can keep the fans in the loop, the more they're going to get excited by this project because we want exciting things to happen. But we just need to remember that if something doesn't happen at the club, it's probably for a good reason that we haven't got the resources, or there's a reason why it can't happen at the moment. So I think it's. I think it's trying to change a mindset. The club. Someone called the club in the close season the most boring club in the country because we've not been promoted or relegated for 17 years. Um, and it's just trying to give them a little bit of hope that, okay, we might not get promoted this year and we might not get relegated this year, but we might get promoted. And we're doing everything we can now. So in the past, it's felt like the club hasn't necessarily always wanted to push on because it does come with, a lot of extra financial responsibility. And in the past, a lot of the players were part time, and it meant they potentially were going to not be able to play for the club if it went full time, which it
Mm,
has to do pretty much in the league above. But
mm.
it feels now that everything we're doing is geared about getting promotion. So if we don't do something, it's not because we don't want to get promoted; it's because it just can't be done at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, such a non-league has become so competitive, hasn't it? I mean, it's non-league, but it's not semi-professional. I'm not sure how many full-time teams there are in your league, Spencer, but I'm guessing there's quite a few now because they were all chasing the dream, aren't they?
Exactly that. It used to be that if you were a full-time team in the National League, you had an advantage. But now I think probably pretty much every team in the National League is full-time. Or if not, there might be one or two that aren't. And then it became, well, if you're full-time in the National League South, you've got an advantage. And last year, I think there was four, maybe five that were full-time, and maybe one or two that were hybrid. There's 10 full-time teams in this league, so you don't get a huge advantage, by being full-time. Half the time you're playing against another team that's full-time as well. And
Mm.
as I said, we've got some teams that have dropped down this year that have got huge budgets, so we're led to believe. You never know for sure, but that's what people are saying. So it's not just that you can go and buy the league. You can't just get it by being full-time. So you've got to just look at all these bits, like we said, and make those small improvements all over, not just one or two areas.
Yeah, and in managing those expectations, Spencer, is there a Mrs. Gore that's going, stop spending, just stop spending, Spencer,
She's
this is
given
our money you're throwing down this one a year.
she's given up on that. I've always had this mindset. I don't know where it comes from, but I've always had this mindset that the more I spend, the more that drives me to make more money. And actually, I was talking to someone last night about this, and saying we were talking about the community side of the football club, and you get there's a certain mindset that sort of thinks it's a bad thing to talk about money and how
Mm,
much you want to earn and how much you want to make, and I'm the opposite of that. I think the more money I can earn, the more good I can do. Because if I give 10% of my wealth, for argument's sake, or 20% or whatever that number is, to charity or to football or to whatever, the more I can make, the more good I can do. So we've got a foundation that helps kids that wouldn't normally get they wouldn't normally get a meal necessarily every day because they get free school dinners, and in the summer holidays and holidays in general they don't get those free school dinners. So we put on camps for those footballers, sorry, for those kids to come and play football and then get free food. And if we're not making money or raising money, we can't do that. And the more money we can raise and make, the more kids we can help. And it's not just kids we help. It's just an example, but you need. So that's always driven me. Is the more I can spend, the more I need to go and make, and that drives me to work hard and grow my businesses. So
yeah,
yeah, she does question how much I put in sometimes, but it's brought our family probably closer together. I was a bit worried. That was probably my biggest concern, that I might just spend too much time down here because I am an all or nothing person.
mm,
But actually, on a Saturday now, all five of us come down and spend pretty much the whole day together when we're all together and stuff
yeah.
like that. So it's been nice from that side.
It's great to hear. I mean, I think from a Christian minister's perspective, sometimes people think that somebody like me just thinks that all that wealth is bad, but what you've said is exactly what I believe. I think
Yeah,
ironically last week the church reading was about the parable of the rich fool. It's not about how much money you can acquire; it's what you do with your money. I think that's really important.
100%.
And in Burnley, the football is one thing, but obviously we've got the Premier League assets now, but the community engagement is absolutely incredible, and you don't need me to tell you, but that's the way that you build up your football club is get the 3 and 4 year olds wearing Chelmsford kits and then they want to play for the first team. And that's the model in Burnley, and that's why so many people follow it and support it. So
Yeah.
all power to your elbow, I would say, Spencer.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with that, and I think that's been lacking a little bit in the club. The club has felt like a team in the past. We've had the women's team over there, the men's team over there, the youth team over there, the walking team there, the disability team there, and it's not been connected at all. It's just been the only connection is the fact that we've got the Chelmsford City badge there,
Mm.
and actually the women's team and the youth team were until this season affiliated separately. And we've now got the women's team to come under our umbrella, and we're working on the youth team still, and we got the foundation, and it feels like we're starting to get a much more joined up community feel to the club, and that is the only way we can grow this.
Yeah.
Again on the logo it says there, I don't think you can see it, many minds, one heart. We need everyone pulling in the same direction to be the heartbeat of the club.
Yeah. Well, great. I'm going to follow you with interest. You had a good start last week. Who've you got this weekend, Spencer?
We're away down at Western Supermare on Saturday, followed by Ebbsfleet on Tuesday night away. Yeah, so we've got 2 away games.
Well, good luck, and I'll definitely be following with interest. We've got Spurs away tomorrow as our opening fixture, so
Yeah.
prayers would be gratefully received by anybody watching. But Spencer, I've loved chatting to you. I could talk to you all day about football. I'm so passionate about it. But thanks, and good luck with what you do, and look forward to seeing the Football League sometime soon.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me on.